which means that all our worldly ways that we're living in right now, in this winds of this degeneration age, so whatever wind that blow to us will carry with it this energy that we have to face. No matter, irrespective of how well you're cultivating, we have to face that. So sentient beings are severely defiled, and there are many disasters which is happening right now with all the natural disasters we're having. And people's minds waver and lose the direction. And why do people's minds waver so easily? Because of our emotion. And that emotion can be easily riled up, and a small trigger can put one in a rage. Our minds must peacefully abide in thoughts of the right path. So this is about training of the mind and taking on the path of the Dhamma. So in Master explanation that we are in right now, that all this contamination of the mind has resulted in a lot of man-made calamities, natural disasters and loss of morals and virtues. So if we were to go back to the days of our parents, to our age, now to our children, you can see that there are changing values of people, and how a certain virtue is probably valued very much in the early days compared to now. For example, in the early days, transaction can be agreed by word of mouth. But then later on, with all these changes of virtues, words are not necessarily will be upheld. Then we have to put down everything down in agreements. There's a contract. And put down in contract, even despite having a contract, there's still a lot of disputes, because the minds of man are so clever that we have our own devious thoughts to interpret words the way we want. And as a result of which, there is dispute result in court orders, so on and so forth. So in this compound, the BDD, people's minds waver and loss of direction. And so we can't tell what is right from wrong and do not understand the principles. You know, this thing about telling right from wrong, this is not meant to criticize any profession, but this was an advice that was given to me by my father when I was 17 years old. I was planning to go overseas to do my further studies. And my father told me one thing, and my father's best friend was actually a very renowned lawyer in Ipoh. And he influenced my father, of course, because he advised his son, despite that he was a well-established lawyer in town, for the son not to take up law. And so my father said, yeah, you're going to finance me to study overseas. And he told me there's only one condition. Whatever you do, he said, you cannot study law. And the reason is because he said that there's a tendency, I'm not saying that all lawyers are like that, there's a tendency that interpret what is wrong to be right. And that was the reason why. So I never became a lawyer. When we are in a state of concentration and can abide by the rules of proper conduct, we can unlock our wisdom. So the state that we are in, we are supposed to abide by the rules of proper conduct. Then we can unlock our wisdom. So in the same way that you know, when I try to relate back to what my father advised me about not taking law, and it's the same thing, that why is it that the Buddha, great religious leaders, Jesus, Prophet Muhammad, Moses, they never wrote anything down, you know. I mean, they are great religious leaders. And I think the reason is because they know that all of us are actually lawyers. And our mind work like lawyers. And that's why whether we are lawyers, qualified lawyers or otherwise, will interpret words according to our own mindset. And that's the reason why we got to train our mind to discern the truth in the Dharma. And also that's also the reason why that I shared with you all. Knowing the Dharma is not good enough. Understanding is not good enough. Because understanding is still using the power of the mind. It's only through realization that you understand through non-thoughts. Not only would there be no confrontation, we could also love and care for each other. This is kind of life that will bring harmony to the society and give you a joyful life. So this is joyful life that one has. It's not a celebrative joy or the worldly pleasure that we have, but it's the inner joy of the Dhamma. So, and this inner joy is the one that brings up the inner light. And because inner joy is the one that can unfold the inner hope. And from inner hope, we can get inner peace. So we understand that the karma of body, speech, and mind. So the actions of our body must not go against ethics and morals. So it's not about, even though you are rightfully yours, but are we going to seize what is rightfully yours and hurt somebody else? So these are the things that obviously we need to understand very well in our practice. And a speech that we must speak, words that we speak must be in accord with the Dhamma. And this here with the mind will uphold in the floral study on precept, samadhi, and wisdom, and with the view of benefiting others. The state of the world that we are in, obviously, kalpas come and go. And Master mentioned that kalpa can be in trillion of years. So kalpa, based on what I know, is slightly more than 1.3 trillion years. Now, these calamities, obviously, but the minor calamities, there's major calamities could be fire, water, and wind. But the minor calamities from famine, pestilence or disease, spread of pandemic disease, and calamity or more. Now, I was running through, obviously, you're familiar with all these three minor calamities. But these minor calamities, when you look at it, it's actually, obviously to us, it's very major calamities. And so by the time major calamities come about, prior water and wind, I mean, there will be absolute disaster. So when I was reading through the transcript and about pestilence, and at the time, a master gave this talk, it was a few years ago. And now we are, Master mentioned an example of SARS, and today we have COVID-19. So we don't know what's to come in the future. And you may also have already heard there was one, also a great master some years back who postulated that there will be a widespread of a very contagious disease. And this, so people relate it, they say, well, that was also predicted earlier, as COVID-19. How is it can be predicted earlier? Because the Buddha already mentioned about these calamities of the rising and the falling of kalpas. So this is the state we are in. But then, some may ask, I'm cultivating so well, and why am I have to face all these things? And this is the thing that we need to understand about our practice. But someone who has practiced well does not mean that we doesn't need to face all this, because facing all these challenges in our life, part of our purification of our spiritual journey, and collective karma will arise. And all these things, challenges, will actually, one who, especially one who is well in practice, will be able to enforce and train the mind. How can one, like an athlete, you can't train an athlete, a hurdler by having very low hurdles, I mean, the real competition, you won't be able to compete. So obviously one have to train hard and jump across all the obstacles and the hurdles in our life. And so this is just another hurdle that we will have to face, and in this period of time. So where will we go? Then, of course, our practice, and that's for us to learn more about the Dharma, so that we know we can face whatever obstacles that come to us without fear. So in this world of stability, principles cannot abide in the people's mind. And Master Gan En mentioned anything can become an object used to kill others. Even grass and trees can become weapons. I'm sure some of you have heard of this chemical called Agent Orange. Back in 1992, from 92 to 97, over a period of 5 years, I was asked by KPMG International to set up the KPMG office in Vietnam. So I was there for over a period of 5 years, traveling in and out of Vietnam. And there was one trip that, you see, and during the time in 92, there's very little traffic. When I was in Hanoi for 2 nights, I could count the number of motor vehicles with the number of my fingers. Okay, and most of them were either commuting, walking, or they're cycling. So obviously today the scenery is very different. So I set up the office back towards the end of 92, and point I was trying to make is, during the Vietnam War, the Americans sprayed Agent Orange onto the forest, because the Viet Congs were hiding in the forests, so they need to flush them out. And what happened is that this is a very powerful chemical warfare. So I was on trip. We decided, my partner and I decided to maybe stop by in Da Nang. Da Nang is right in the middle of Vietnam, and we were there. We didn't stay over in Da Nang, so we just flew from Hanoi, arrived in Da Nang in the morning. We took the evening flight out from Da Nang. And what was fascinating, rather disheartening, so should I use it was disheartening, was this. As I took off from Da Nang, and I knew about Agent Orange that was sprayed towards the middle part of Vietnam, because the borders between the north and the south. I looked down and I saw the hills where it was supposed to be forested. It was totally barren. Now, what happened is that this Agent Orange until today has affected the second and the third generation of people. They are mentally retarded, they're born without limbs, or they have really severe cleft lips that you can hardly see the face, and it's like a hole through the nose and through the mouth. And till today, and this Agent Orange, a dioxin that is in the people, and there were soldiers. The soldiers survived through that, but the next generation, the children, are suffering until today, and they were no part of the war. They were born away after the war. So this are all happening in this world today, and a couple of days ago, I listened down someone born in the 1900 and go through this period of the year 100 years, from 1900 to year 2000. It had been constant wars, depression, and everything else. And now culminating to this period since the year 2001 until we are now. So we also need to try to understand, to map out, to understand the state of the calamity we are in, so that how we can set our mind to be in practice better. So the Buddha, after the children escaped the burning house, still wanted to let the children know about all these kinds of problems and hardship, so that when we understand this, we face all these things without fear. Fear arises from the unknown. So when you don't know something, you will be very fearful. But we know what it is, you discern it well, and you use that knowledge to be in the practice. And that's why we can find the inner hope within yourself. The more karma we create, the more collective karma we gather. And that's the reason why sometimes when we face some of these karmas, could be a disaster, it could be an accident, it could be anything that comes together. And when this condition comes together, we face them. So this good, and a result of which we are calamity of war. So therefore, if we understand all this end of the suffering that arises, there must be a cause. This war did not happen just the way it does. It happened because there was a cause. So therefore, in this lifetime, once we purify, having to face all these calamities, we will purify so that we do not create any new more karma. And that's why the whole world needs to go through. And that's why the Bodhisattvas took the first vow to liberate all sentient beings. So we cannot just liberate one or two. We liberate all sentient beings so that we can end all this suffering. And so therefore, in all these things, that this awaken the young and ignorant. So this, I call them the young souls. These are the ones that we need to understand what is suffering, and then the law of karma, so that they too are able to liberate themselves. So the most important thing of all this thing is that we be peaceful and abide in also the right path. So in contemplation, a short one today. Suffering without a learning. So we are here, we're facing these calamities, we are facing our own life becomings that come to us. So we have to suffering, but the suffering, when we understand the Dharma, always come with a learning. But suffering without a learning is a wasted pain. You have to go through the pain anyway. But if you suffer and you understand this is part of your purification, that pain, convert that pain, will become an inner joy. So enjoyment at the same time that the merits that one has, that we have a good life as a result of which. So enjoyment without an understanding of what we have in those merits is a wasted merit. So on relationship, not forgiving someone for a mistake will lead not to forgive the next person, because you can connect with one person today, will not forgive the next person, and then many more persons after that. So that can only bring forth hatred and anger in you that darkens your world. So how can then inner joy arise if you don't learn to forgive? So try forgiving and you'll feel how liberating and joyous it can be. So just forgive. All right, thank you.
Gan En, 无限 endless gratitude.